Welcome to Authentic Educators, a podcast by teachers for teachers about best lessons, favorite classroom moments, and strategies you can implement today. A few years ago, I was walking down the hall and overheard some positive noise and energy emanating from one of my colleagues' classroom. What I walked into was a lesson run by his student teacher, in which students were actively and enthusiastically debating one another. As I found out later, the strategy, called hot seat debate, challenged students to think on their feet, listen to their peers, and collaborate with their team to try and win the argument. Parents and teachers across the country will all likely admit that children love to argue. My conversation with Dave aims to explain how you can leverage this instinctual behavior into amazing lessons.
Hey, Cody. So you and I were talking earlier, and I love the idea of a young dog teaching an old dog a new trick. And you had this cool reflection. You were talking about, was it a student teacher taught you some really cool idea? And the way you said it to me was, you said, "I wish I had known this 16 years ago."
Correct. Yeah, it was my 16th year of teaching, and I just happened on my prep period to pop my head in to my neighbor's across the hall neighbor's room. And there was a student teacher leading the lesson, and it looked really cool. So later I talked to her and I said, "What was this?" And she explained it. And I have no idea if she came up with it herself or she had a professor teach it, but it's called a hot seat debate. And it's something I've done probably 5 or 6 times since then. And every time it's a hit, it's one of those activities where kids ask you, "When can we do that again?"
Oh, cool.
And no matter what you do or what subject you teach, if you ever have kids saying, "When can we do that again?"
you got to lean into that.
Correct. Yeah. So it's called a hot seat debate, and it could be clearly used in an English class, a social studies class, science classes, if you're talking about some things, anything where you could have a couple of different topics that you could debate. It allows the students to really shine in different ways, and it's very, very student-centric, high movement, and something that I love. So basic concept, and we're going to have in our episode description a link to something that I've used for when I taught the Count of Monte Cristo, and it was an introductory activity for the Count of Monte Cristo, and it's editable, and you can change and mess around with the points like it was a competitive thing. But I think really the kids didn't so much care about who won at the end of the day because they just had fun doing it.
Great.
So basic concept, you split the class up into 3 groups. In an ideal world, you would have enough time in a class to go through 3 rotations. And a rotation, you need a bare minimum 10 to 15. It really works well if you happen to teach in a block scheduling situation. If you don't teach in a block scheduling situation, you could maybe modify and just do 2 rounds or let the lesson bleed into the next day. So for the Count of Monte Cristo, I came up with 3 statements. This way, every group in your 3 groups can argue a pro side, argue a con side, and serve as the role of juror for one of the rounds. And the Count of Monte Cristo, one of the statements that I really liked that was probably the best of the 3 rounds was simply, "Happiness is a choice." And the kids, as soon as they saw the topic, just started to talk to each other, right? And the key is you assign the group a negative or an affirmative or a jury. Like, they don't get to pick, "Oh, this is something I actually agree in," right? It forces them, or at least some of them statistically, to have to argue something that they might not actually agree with, which is a concept that I love just in general, right?
Totally.
Playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. Teaching everybody, it's pretty easy to find something to support what you already believe in.
Correct. So you have a presentation up on the board, whatever that looks like in your classroom, and you give the kids not too much time, like a few minutes to start thinking about maybe jotting down some ideas, right? If you have a ton of time, like you could lean into and make this like, you could theoretically take this, and if you wanted to do like a 3-day lesson, if you just are a teacher that weirdly has an unlimited amount of time, and you give the students opportunity to think about their ideas, right? So the affirmative group is kind of coming up with their own ideas. The negative group is coming up with their own ideas. And then the jury is sitting there thinking about how can what would I say if I was on that team or that team? And they're ultimately the ones that have to be active listeners and render a vote at the end of the debate. So you set your desks up, you kind of have three groups kind of in a triangle in your room, and you have two chairs or two tables, two desks in the middle of the whole space. So you have this kind of like empty vacuum and these two desks in the middle. And whether it's 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, right? You can kind of mess around with how long you want the activity to go for. And you let the kids debate. And the key thing about being the hot seat debate, and this is both hard and amazing for the students, is that they cannot talk loudly, at least, unless they're the ones sitting in that seat. It's not, 8 kids screaming on this side and 8 kids screaming on this side. It's whoever is on my team in that hot seat is the one that's talking. And the kids, I guess the expression, I'm cooking is one I'm hearing today. They'll be like, oh, don't go in. Dave's cooking, right? And,
you could stay in the seat as long as you want.
You could stay in so if it's a 7-minute debate window, that one student could stay in there the entire time.
But and is the other side speaking, or is it just like teams take turns?
No, it's kind of it's natural dialogue and conversation.
Back and forth. Okay.
Where you're not, the affirmative sign doesn't hold up like the talking stick, right? It's kind of natural back and forth. And if you have a situation where a student is just going, you as the moderator need to tell that student, hey, give the opponent an opportunity to interject. But that just naturally happens, right? Like a kid's kind of going and then they run out of things to say and then somebody else will point in.
Right.
And if they notice that their classmates struggling or getting tripped up, they can get out of their seats and physically tap them on the shoulder or their desk. And that's the cue that finish my thought and then I have to get up. It's not, oh, wait, no, give me another minute. It's okay, let me finish whatever I'm about to say. And then I have to leave.
Right.
And so you incentivize in the scoring. I give them a point for every team member that speaks. Right. So just making a valid point and getting it in there. And a lot of kids have struggles with that because they have lots of social anxieties. And then I put in like a plus X amount of points, little bonus if at least 5 people or 4 people or 6 people, depending upon your numbers, speak. And so you can't, if you just have one person speak, you might get all the jury's votes, which I give it 1 point per as well. But if the other team does reasonably well and has a varied amount of voices, they're kind of inevitably going to win.
Gotcha.
Right. So it goes like back and forth for the amount of time, and the kids like really enjoy when they're like best friends on the other team sitting in that seat.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let me get up in there and, and go for it. And, at the end you say, well, how many of you actually didn't agree with what you were saying? And, half their hands kind of go up and like, wait, you don't believe? Oh, no, I was just trying to win this debate. And it makes them think about things from different perspectives.
Do you mind if I ask 2 quick questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go with that. Happiness is a choice. Are the kids like looking up research or statistics or quotations? And
that's however much time you want to do with it. So this was the specific episode that's in our the specific class that's in our episode notes was an introduction to the unit where they had no context. But these are big thematic things. Like there's so much sadness in that in that novel. And then so one of the other rounds, like so 3 rounds, right? So every group can debate twice and be the juror once.
And it's all for the same topic though?
No, it's like
new topics each time.
New topic. So another topic was, if the legal system has failed to bring someone to justice who has significantly harmed me or a loved one, I'm justified in seeking revenge.
Okay. Right? So round 1, you give only one topic and there's one side affirmative, one side negative. And and my second question was going to be, so you have the jury. Now I know you said they can kind of consider what would they do if they were this side or that side, but is there anything tangible that they're doing before the debate starts?
Correct. Yeah. They should have a sheet of paper out in front of them, or a computer, whatever you're comfortable with as the teacher. And their task is to be active listeners and jot down, you make up the number 2, 3, 4 kind of, I for athletes in the room, I generally think about like a Sports Center top 10 moments, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And right, pick like two or three of the top moments in it. So they have to say, at the end, I felt like the affirmative group made the better argument. And then they have to specifically, as close to word for word as they can, reference something that one of the
Okay.
classmates said. So if they're not actively listening, they're like, oh yeah, the negative group made a better comment.
You need
Then
more than that.
yeah. And so like the jury, I let them earn points by, as long as everybody on the team offers a valid reason
Gotcha.
for their vote, then I give them a point. So it's like the juror, when you're the each team that functions as the juror once, like you can only really earn 1 point for that.
Right. Follow-up question.
Yeah.
So that makes sense during the debate, but what I actually meant was prior. So prior to the debate,
Oh, okay.
what are they doing
Yeah.
then?
So in the the 3, the 5, the 7, however much time you want to give them to start putting their ideas together. And I've had kids on the debating teams like quickly bust out a quick like opening statements or whatever, and
Oh
they'll
yeah.
bring it up with them. And I'm like, hey, if you want to take down any notes or bring it up with you, you're welcome to. You want to bring your book up, you can bring your book up. It'd be really actually interesting in the age of AI. I haven't really used it with AI, where if you wanted to give them access to AI as arguments about something, right,
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
and then have them kind of lean into whether they think the argument's valid or not. The jurors' task while that preparation is happening is kind of to get together with their team and think about, okay, well, what are we anticipating that these sides might bring up? Right? What are some points that if I were affirmative or negative, would I say in order to try to sway the juror?
Gotcha.
The third topic in this specific Monte Cristo anticipation, like opening activity, was extreme wealth will make a wealthy person's life better than someone with average wealth. Right. So I'm not
Gotcha.
saying like, oh, you have a lot of money versus you have no money. But if you made like the average or you were purely middle class, are you going to be more or less happy than somebody who is in that top 1%? And so each of
Gotcha.
those three concepts, as the story went on, came up a bunch in the story.
So
And
you then
so,
have this referential thing to go back to, which I love that. I
right,
mean, any
yeah,
anticipatory set works
yeah.
so well when you can call back to it.
And you can literally call back to it by doing the same activity in this case with the same exact statements, but now
Pull from the
you need to
book.
reference the text and
Yeah.
characters, which was a really cool concept to see in execution.
Why do you think kids for this activity, why do you think it's been one of those activities that they repeatedly have said or have asked them, when are we doing this again?
They love to argue. One,
Yeah, okay.
right? I mean, how many the listeners out there, especially those of you with kids yourselves, they just never want to lose an argument, whether that's bedtime for a little kid or going out to eat or more time on the Switch or whatever it is. They love to argue, right? So it's getting to do something that they're intrinsically talented at in an educational setting. So that's
Hmm.
one. And then two, there's like the free flowing movement, right? So yeah, I have kids that hate just sitting still. And in this case, if they're standing up, like getting like they'll literally like stand at their desks and lean into it or kind of pace back and forth, and they don't have to ask for permission for that.
Yeah,
And I mean, who doesn't love pulling one over on one of your friends, right?
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Having like a zinger where you hear kids be like, oh, right, or like, oh, right, like kind of almost if it's a boxing match, but in this
And
case,
the
the
tapping
punches, the
in,
words.
the tapping in and tapping out's very fluid, you said?
Oh yeah, it's super fluid, right? You very rarely did I, as the teacher, have to do anything to course correct that. But there would be situations where there would be a line 4 or 5 deep of kids like tapping in, and right, and maybe one student's ready to tap in, but then they hear their classmate, their teammate, right, making really great points, and like, oh, I'm not going to go in yet. Or oh shoot, somebody just said something which was a big mistake. You got to get that guy out of there, right? Got to get her out of there. So they really love that component.
One thing I love while listening to this is how malleable the assignment seems. Like It feels
Absolutely.
like if you wanted to do this as a warm up, like you said, where it's, I don't want to use the word unstructured, but it's a little bit more loose in terms of not needing to get a bunch of statistics or direct quotations. It could be sort of
Hmm.
like, you chat for a few minutes to
Sure.
prep and
Yeah.
you go at it. On the
Yep.
flip side, if you wanted to get crazy technical, you could have a really detailed rubric with certain
Hmm.
requirements and
Hmm.
give them more time to research. I mean, it seems really cool in that sense that you could have a 10-minute debate, or you
Right.
probably could have a much longer form one if they had a
Yep.
X amount of time to research and really
Yeah.
dig deep into something. So
Yeah.
that's super
You
cool.
could pick a topic, right, and have right maybe one article that's the affirmative and one article that's the negative, and you could give both articles to both groups and say, well, one, your own ideas are valid, but you definitely need to reference these things.
Yeah,
I mentioned
debunk
AI
it.
earlier, which I'm really excited for a guest that we're going to have in the near future, where hopefully, we might talk about it in the classroom. But, you could, in today's age, you could literally type in your topic and say, generate 5 reasons that somebody would agree and 5 reasons that somebody would disagree with that. So you could kind of say, hey, look, this is what AI spit out from here. Now you need to evaluate and rank and, lean into where you think that it's making good points. And honestly, this would be a great first week of school activity. Or I
It's
know
I was thinking
tomorrow is
that.
your new
Yeah.
semester, where it could be something like waffles or pancakes, cats or dogs, because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
activity itself allows you as the teacher to learn so much about your students. This
Sure. Who's
student's terribly
reluctant, who's a
shy.
leader, yeah.
This student's going to take a leadership role.
Who's a little
This student
silly.
is silly. This student doesn't know when to not talk, right? So
Right.
you can use it for anything. So really, any teacher. I think I struggle to think how like our math friends out there might integrate it. But if you had a day earlier in the year that you wanted to do as sort of a fun get to know you type thing. Well, this is getting to know what type of learning personality you are by seeing how you interact in this. So,
I love this, Cody. My wheels are turning trying to figure out ways to use this, but as we wrap up here,
yeah.
any final things to say about it? I think you covered it pretty well.
No, it's good. I mean, in the episode description, you'll see a link to the presentation that I used for the Count of Monte Cristo, and it's easy to copy. I used Canva and changed whatever topics, and you can change the point structure. But the key is you have the 3 corners, one juror, affirmative, negative, and then those 2 seats in the middle where kids are tapping in and out to be allowed to talk.
Well, Cody, this sounds great. Thank you for sharing, and we hope our listeners find use of this. It sounds like an awesome activity.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to our conversation. As always, reach out to us at AuthenticEdPod@gmail.com if you have any questions or great ideas you'd like to share. If you enjoy what we are doing, the best way you can help is to subscribe to, rate, and share our podcast. Our goal is to reach and help as many educators as possible, and that cannot happen without folks spreading the word. We appreciate your support, and thank you again for listening to Authentic Educators.